And now, live from the Tanzu TV studios, it's Tanzu Tuesdays with your host, Robert Mermaid.
Welcome, everyone. Hello. Pew, 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 pew. Ha, ha, ha. Hurry.
I don't know about crashing. I don't want to crash and burn. I don't want to crash and burn. I mean,
here's
Paul
the problem
kind of is already.
I'm already burning.
I saw Paul's thing, and that really it fed the instrument, if you will. So, welcome to Tanzu Tuesday, friends, my Tanzunians. I hope you all have your tan suits on, ready to watch another amazing episode. We're very lucky to have with us Mr. Art. Oh, I didn't even know how to say his name. Fewell?
You got it. That's a surprise. You know, nobody ever gets that right on the first time.
I was going to say, I've been talking to you for like a half an hour. I didn't even come up to say, how do you say your last name?
That's the kind of professionalism we bring to this show.
No.
Hey, I'm right with that level.
Well, anyway, Art, so glad to have you here. Of course, we also have with us the wonderful Paul Tchaikovsky and
Look at this.
effervescent Tiffany Faye J, aka Tiffany Jernigan. What are you drinking?
I'm drinking a matcha green tea, but it matches my.
It's really cool. Like it's on fire.
I'm drinking fire.
I like how you said you're matcha and it's matching everything else. Hey, come on now. That one's just low-hanging fruit. Sorry.
We're having technical difficulties.
Hold on. I'll get the applause. There it is. Laugh track.
I was too
just talked
focused
about
on
laugh tracks.
matcha versus matcha.
Matcha. Matcha is the Australian pronunciation of it.
Well, yes. So welcome, everyone. Tiffany, Paul, so good to be back with you. Thank you.
So
Art,
great to be
we're
back.
so excited to have you on the show. Tiffany has been chomping at the bit for this one. She's very excited for all the things that you're going to be teaching us, which is great. And so she's already got her notepad. All the things. Quick weather report over here. It is raining, so it's currently Seattle type weather.
Wow.
And it's blessed rain.
I don't know what I need to tell you about the weather here. I think
hot and smoky.
Right?
It's blurted rain here.
It's actually not too bad. It was pretty chilly the last few mornings. Like it gets down to like 65 degrees, like definitely sweater weather.
Wow. I mean, you got to bring in the cats almost on that
right?
low.
That's the temperature in my house.
I'm in Las Vegas.
65? Yeah. You're in LV, huh?
Yes.
Wow. Keeping it weird in Las Vegas. I love it.
Yeah, it's weather's been pretty decent. No complaints. It's getting to be that time of year where it's starting to get a little bit cooler, but I think we're still in the 70s outside. So.
Well, yeah. I mean, during
not at all.
During reInvent, it's still pretty nice. I mean, it cools down at night, but and also everybody's inside during the whole time anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So inside, the winters are remarkably mild. Are you a Las Vegas like lifer? Is that where you were born and raised, or?
I've lived here since about 2001 time frame.
Oh, so
it's been a long time. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm always curious. There's a couple of places that always intrigue me of like, why people live there or were they, kind of original residents or whatnot. Vegas is definitely one of them since it's such a very specific town. So.
What brought you to Vegas?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of a long story, but it's actually my ex.
It's okay. We've got the time.
I'll keep it simple. My ex. Yeah, there we go.
A significant other. It tends to be the case, but yeah, that makes sense. And
this has got a lot more adventurous. I just did a sudo rm-r star on the wrong directory. So I said this is going to be some live coding example today. We are just going for it all out.
I love it. Well,
like it's in Git, and you can just do a Git restore stage.
Yes.
We'll say that's the case.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead.
I was saying, we're the whole point is that this should be, like I said, pretty straightforward, relatively easy to do. I want to make sure that if anyone's following along, that they can follow along, and I'm not doing any extra tricks to make it extra simple for myself. So either it's going to work or it's going to not, but whatever I do, people should be able to follow along with me down the road to somewhere.
We're gonna go somewhere, that's for sure. Well, before we do that, let's get into a bit of our announcements. We've already got Spencer Gibb on. Hey, Spence. Mother Dragons, I think, is on.
Yeah, I saw Tasha earlier.
Yeah, Nate Shuda, hello.
Our announcements are who
family.
is online right now?
Who's on? Yeah.
And Echironte, I'm sure I said that wrong, but they're online and saying hola, which means hello, if you didn't know.
Wow, look at you, bilateral.
Well, definitely bilateral.
So announcement number 1, tomorrow starts the Spring One Tour. It's our last show of the year. It's Wednesday and Thursday, November 18th, 19th, tomorrow and the next day. Belabai and Alexei Nesterov are going to be talking about Spring Testing Trophy. It's focusing on high-level integration tests and introduces static analysis as the base. So definitely come. There's going to be 2 amazing days, starting 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 hours tomorrow, and then an hour of a Q&A, AM, Ask Me Anything Q&A, whatever you want to call it, on Thursday. And that's starting again at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. You definitely need to register at springonetour.io. Particularly if you want to participate in the Q&A parts. If you want to just watch it, you can stream it on our channel, which you're watching right now. But if you want to actually participate with questions and whatnot, you do need to register. And all registrations are free. But again, go to springonetour.io for all of your information.
Will they be handing out an actual testing trophy? Or is it?
Yeah, I can't promise that, but I'm going to promise that. So yes.
All right,
A virtual trophy. So, and everyone, it's a participation. So you got to put on your participants when you're going to watch there it is. I'm sorry for that bad joke. All right. Tomorrow also starts KubeCon, the virtual North American KubeCon. That's happening the 17th through the 20th. And go to events.linuxfoundation.org. A ton of amazing Kubernetes, Kates, even Cube Cuddle will probably be talked about.
I'm sure it will.
Information is going to be happening in the next 3 days.
There's some
keynotes are free, so if you just want to see the keynotes, you can. Tiffany is very correct. And the other thing is today there are some day zero things happening, including some stuff that VMware is putting on. But if you're watching this live, it's probably getting too late. And if you're watching this after live, it's definitely too late. If you're watching this from the past, you're all good and you can still have time to watch that.
Perfect. Excellent. I know we are all physically wishing we could be there in person, but sadly, we just are where we are. Let's see.
This is our last Tanzu Tuesday for the month, since we are taking a break next week due to Thanksgiving.
That's right, everybody. Hopefully you will be
the giving of thanks.
In a very thankful giving mood. Also, stay safe. Please don't travel if you don't have to. Please keep your social circles as closely socialized as you can, because we are in that second wave, third wave even. I don't know.
We're on lockdown in Washington again.
It's like serious time. We as a family just put out the, hey, we're not hosting. Sorry, we love you all and we miss you terribly, but we just want everybody to be safe. So, so we're be thankful, and hopefully everyone stays safe. And we will see you December 1st is the first show back in December.
That's perfect.
And then TGIK this Friday. Paul, who's going to be on TGIK this Friday?
Oh, yeah. This Friday is Olive Power. And I believe we're going to be going through telco workloads on Kubernetes. So I think that'll be an interesting one. Maybe we can all run 5G at home now on Kubernetes, right? That's how it works. I don't know.
Yeah. And then, yes, always go to tanzu.tv. We have all of our amazing content from Nate Shuda's Between the Keyboard and the Armchair on Mondays. Most Mondays, most every day is Cote's. I don't know what to call it. Tanzu Talk. That's what it is. Yep, which are great. And that's of course 10 a.m. Central European time for all our European viewers. Tomorrow and every Wednesday we have Code, and tomorrow we'll have Jakob Pilleman presenting, and that's at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And yeah, so there's lots of great content. You can definitely go back and watch all of our previous shows and whatnot.
Right, a couple of quick corrections.
Okay.
First of all, Bob, I love the fact that you say Nate's show wrong differently every single time.
Yes!
I was noticing that.
I hope you do it on purpose, but I think it would be even better if you just do it on accident. So it's between chair and keyboard. It's a pun of the...
Chair, don't I? Right? Don't I
right. It's a pun of the problem exists between chair and keyboard, as in like you on the chair is
right.
The problem.
You are the problem. I got it. Yes, as I like to say, they're imperfect machines created by imperfect people. So
right. And the other correction, of course, it is Tanzu, not Tanzu, because you say dance, not dance. Right?
Also, you have a show too.
Oh yeah, we don't need to talk about me. I'm kind of a big deal. People don't need to hear about me. But yes, most Thursdays I do a stream at I think 2:00 Central Time with my friend JJ Asgar from IBM. We sort of do a co-stream. So he streams on their channel, I stream on this channel, and we kind of go through stuff. And so recently we've been going through using Ansible to orchestrate running workloads on Kubernetes.
And I think we learned from Ghostbusters that you're not supposed to cross the streams.
Well, you know, Kubernetes is kind of like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. So in that instance, it is okay to cross it. Spoiler alert.
Oh, boy.
I just learned that there were s'mores-shaped marshmallows that are like flatter because I just ordered them marshmallows the other day for s'mores. They're like square.
We've now gotten to the point of ridiculousness as a human being.
We're done.
All right. Art, welcome back. Hopefully you are awake still and ready for more fun. So let's get to know you a little bit. We already found out you live in you're not leaving Las Vegas. You're living in Las Vegas.
Living in Vegas, yeah.
You were brought there by a significant other, and that's okay. And you stayed. So clearly there's for more than just the Flaming Fajitas. What's that place? Is it Juan's Flaming Fajitas? And pretty good Mexican food place.
Oh, I missed the crawfish place.
Crawfish place is good.
Yeah, what got you started in the whole world of IT tech, which is
gosh, I you know, it's something I've always been real interested in. This kind of naturally. I didn't have I wasn't well funded as a child, and so I didn't have much access to computing. But I remember I used to just read computer magazines when I didn't have a computer. And then when I was, I don't know, about 14, 15, one of my friend's dads had a business and he'd bring us in to help, you know, with some extra filing. And I just started computerizing things for him. And kind of the rest is history.
Cool. Yeah, excellent. Well, we're happy to have you here. We're ready to jump into the talk. So if you want to start sharing your screen.
Cool. Let me go ahead and let's do this. Screen share. Let's see which screen I want to do. Number 2. Okay. How's that? I should get this cleared out.
Oh, looks incredible.
Cool. So let's just go back to my base here. Okay, and so I will start. So as I mentioned, I am doing everything by the seat of my pants today. I felt like it was in the spirit of the call to do it kind of live coding style. And so I kind of kept things that way. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about, look at a couple good reference sites for learning about what all the static site goodness is about. And then we'll get into Hugo and look a little bit about Hugo and set up 1 or 2 or 3 basic sites depending on how timing goes, and go from there. Does that sound good?
Yes, sounds great.
Cool. So first, I'm going to start out at just kind of starting at this basic concept of, you know, what's the deal with static sites. You may have heard of Hugo, or you may have seen GitHub pages. And one keyword that is, I don't know if this is the most official keyword for static site generators. But one of the big words that I think is being put out there as a name for the whole idea, the whole kind of thing with the static site generators that are happening, not Hugo just specifically, but the whole kind of architecture behind it is Jamstack. And so you see this word a lot. Not everybody uses it. Like you don't really see it used much on the Hugo website, for example. But I like the site, and I like kind of this effort that they're putting here to evangelize this concept of the static site generator and what it does. But you're really, at the end of the day, what it comes down to is that in the user experience, no matter how you build a website, mobile application that's web backed and such, no matter what you do on the back end, no matter which server side framework you might be using, right, everything about the user experience is always translated into HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. And so you can go to server-side frameworks, and a lot of server-side frameworks, you do things like, I'm going to define my object model in one place on the server side, and that doesn't change that. Regardless of how you do it, it's going to go and push CSS and JavaScript and HTML to the client side. You might define your model, and you might have a database where you have all the different content for your website, and you may have a controller that automatically renders a view to a client. And when it does that, it's manipulating CSS, JavaScript, and HTML on the client side. And so, kind of the net of it is you can always do things through the server side, and that's not a bad thing, right? There's a lot of good modern server side architectures and ways of going about it. But there's also a lot of advantages when you start to decouple the server side from the client side. And even before I talk about just straight static site generation, you could put static site generators in this bucket of one client-side framework. And so when you think of, I want to host my website, so what static sites do is they help you build a set of HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. And when you have that, you can put it on something as simple as an S3 bucket, right? And it works as a web server, right? It's pretty cool. It's just, how do you get to that, to get that? And so static site generators, like the common theme among all the different static site generators that exist, is that they, at least all the ones that I've seen, are really optimized to where you'll download, or you'll build some sort of template for kind of the framework for your website. But then what are you going to update on a regular basis? You're going to update the content on your pages. And so they'll use some type of they'll use Markdown. So you can go in and write Markdown in a very simple context, and have shortcuts to be able to do some more advanced things in a simple way. And then you hit a button to generate, or enter a command to generate, and it'll generate that HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But before I go further into JavaScript, I just wanted to mention this idea of hosting on GitHub Io your CSS and your JavaScript and your HTML. That's not exclusive to static site generators. And you've got a lot of client side frameworks this will work with. So you can use Angular, you can use React and Flutter, and any method that you want to generate your client side code. And you can also host that on GitHub.io or on an S3 bucket. The big difference is how do you actually make updates and changes? Right, and so regardless of how you happen to do that, if you once you get an entity up that's static, and it's only going to be static unless you change it, or it's always going to be static until you make a change, at which point you have to trigger something to rebuild your HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. But it's not exclusive to static site generators. That all makes sense so far? I know I didn't have, it's kind of a lot to think about. I think about it all the time lately, so it kind of rolls off the tongue for me. But yeah, and you can look through a Jamstack site here, and it goes through a lot of different benefits of why Jamstack has a nice thing, or has a nice capability, and other benefits of the Jamstack framework. In general, when you use a static site generator, you would generally host your content on some type of content delivery network. And so it's generally very performant. And that includes GitHub Io. There's a number of different hosting sites and content delivery networks and things like that. And when you use GitHub Io, it automatically is pushed to CDN as well. So you get that benefit. And so before I get into more about how to do some of this stuff, I want to talk about the direction you should go, because I'm going to talk about Hugo as one specific static site generator that I like using. That is not the right static site generator for everybody. I think, there's static. So Hugo is a static site generator that uses Golang. I like Golang. I'm not a great developer or anything, but you have a comfort level with Golang, and there's a lot of things I like about it, especially when I'm building a web server. You can wrap things up in containers if you want to, and serve them from Kubernetes if you'd like, or from an S3 bucket. So you've got a lot of different directions to go. But there are, the amount of static site generators that exist out there, it's just nuts. Like, I don't think you can see my scroller bar, but I can scroll down for like half an hour here, and I still won't be at the bottom of this list of all the different static site generators that exist. I think that the ideal place to go is to try to find a template. Well, first is if there's a language you're really comfortable in, use one of there is a most popular static site generator for pretty much every language that exists. I think there's one in here for what's the one that's used for? There's some in here that are used for some of these programming languages that are used almost entirely for just teaching people. They have static site generators. I'm forgetting the name of the one I was thinking of, but there's an insane amount of languages represented. There's languages I haven't heard of that are represented in here, and so on, and then different frameworks that are representative. And so one thing to think about, what language do you want? One I like to call out. You might see some popular ones here: Next.js, Gatsby, Jekyll. You may have heard of these ones. Jekyll has kind of a special call out because Jekyll is the static site generator that is used by GitHub, and that doesn't afford you really any meaningful advantages, I don't think. If you want to have a static site hosted on GitHub, there are some basic things when you go into GitHub. Like, so anytime in your GitHub repo, you can go into your settings, and that's where you find your Github Io settings. And you can see that you have an option here that says select a theme to publish your site with a Jekyll theme. And so, excuse me, sorry. I think, this is one of the big advantages potentially is if you want to use one of the native, the built-in Jekyll themes, then you can just go choose a theme. But one of the things you'll see, especially as I get into looking at some other themes, is these themes are really basic. And that doesn't mean that all Jekyll themes are really basic, but it just happens to be that, the ones that are built in for into GitHub, into this particular function that you can do through the web browser, are more basic themes that don't have a lot of the features we'll be looking at as we look through a couple other themes. But the cool thing is if you just write a page and with Markdown, you can just go in and apply this theme, and if it's what you want, you're good to go. But like just one simple example is: do you want something like Google Analytics? Do you want something like the ability to search through your posts? Do you want something like keywords or tag clouds so people can click on different themes? Contents, table of contents and directories, or different page types, right? You're not going to get these in the built-in themes that are in GitHub. And so when you're thinking about which static site generator to use, I think one of the big criteria is if you want to customize it extensively, and you are comfortable with some programming language, maybe a good idea to look at the ones that are there for the programming languages you're comfortable with. And that's, of course, if you want to customize it. One of the great things about these sites is, depending on your goals, and really, you can go very far with this. There are templates that are going to be very close to what you want, because there's so many templates out there, and there's a lot of templates that have a lot of built-in features that allow you to customize through a simple means if you're a non-programmer, or if you're not a front-end developer or what have you. You know, you can get just about anything you can imagine done without having to get into anything more than very basic stuff. And when I say basic, you know, everything can be complicated, but things that you can just kind of follow the document on to it's exactly, and without having a lot of knowledge, just go step by step through what their documentation shows, and be able to get the website you want out of it without needing to, you know, understand all the advanced stuff that exists in the world of front-end development. Okay, so the next thing I want to look at here are themes. And so the one factor, depending on whether you want to code or whether you're not, you want to kind of do a low code. If you're really interested in coding, you know, go with maybe focus on ones that are the coding or the languages you're more comfortable with. But if you're not as concerned, maybe if you're a polyglot, or maybe you don't want to code, right? The next criteria to consider is looking at the themes that exist. So if you go to jamstackthemes.dev, it's a good site, and you can see here, one nice thing about Jamstack themes is, as you can see over on this left side here, SSG is static site generator. This doesn't have every static site generator that exists. As you saw on the last page, there's actually quite a few more than this, but this has quite a few static site generators that it presents themes for. And so, you know, like there's, if you can find something that is really close to what you want to do, it may be way better it's almost always way better to go with that. And I think one of the great examples is a theme called mkdocs. Where's mkdocs.org? If you've been to readthedocs.org, I think this uses Python, but one of the coolest things about mkdocs is if you're looking to make a documentation and get it exactly the way you want it, if you like what you see on Read the Docs, you don't need at all to think about how they do anything underneath, other than it may tell you, you know, install this dependency or install that dependency, right? So you might have to do that, but there's so much just in their basic YAML like configuration files that they have to customize the options on mkdocs. You can do just about anything you want. Now, if you want to make something other than a documentation website, you know, this may not be the right thing for you, but you know, even if you're a great programmer in some particular language, and you think, hey, I'm going to go with Jekyll because because I like Ruby, as Jekyll works on Ruby, and maybe Jekyll has a theme that's as good for what you want to do as mkdocs is, but you may end up spending a whole lot more time, even if you're a Ruby expert, trying to customize some other theme to get what you want, than if you come and look at one that's really purpose-built for a site that type that you're trying to build. So, you know, I really like mkdocs. Now, that being said, I'm not using mkdocs heavily myself, even for my documentation sites, because I make several different types of sites. And if you're going to make several different types of sites, it's useful to kind of try to stay within the family of one static site generator, because there's so much commonality. Like with Hugo, for example, right? You can go from one theme to the next, to the next, to the next. Different themes have different features, and you can kind of borrow, if you start to get familiar with that framework, you can borrow from one theme and paste it into another theme, right, to add that functionality and so on. And so there's also that usefulness of working within a particular framework, so that way, as you become familiar with a specific framework, you know, you gain expertise in it. So yeah, but again, you know, if you're trying to do something relatively straightforward, you know, I recommend it's definitely worth it to spend some time, you know, looking through the different themes that are available, you know, that are out there to see, you know, find one that is pretty close to where you want to start, and go from there. And for a lot of these sites, from basic to complex, there's a lot of examples where you can find things that are very, very close to what you're looking for, and they have documented simple methods to do the last bit of customization you need to get exactly the site you want. Now, you may start looking at these theme sites and realize, oh wow, 531 themes. Just the amount of time it takes to go through these all is going to be a big challenge. And so you can use a combination of those two ideas. Is there a language or some other reason why you like one of these static site, right? You might prefer one of these static site generators. And so one way to narrow it down, is you can go to look at the themes for a particular framework first, and see if they have the theme you want there before you come back out to the site. So if you just look up Hugo Themes, go hugo.io.themes, but I'll just show you, if you can just do the search and you'll see it's the first thing. And one thing I liked about doing the search is it does bring up a couple of the popular sub menus here. So if you're looking for a particular type, you can maybe drill directly into it without even clicking on the main list here. But if you come to Hugo Themes website, very nice, pretty presented, and you can get a nice picture of the type of what it'll look like. Now, not all of these, you can't grasp everything from a thumbnail, and there's plenty of these that will show like a splash page, and so you might have to drill in a little bit to get a better idea. But you can glean a lot of insight from just looking at the pictures, and they have a lot of different tags, lots and lots and lots and lots of different tags. So you can go through and you can kind of look through these by tag. If you're on a blog site, if some of the sites are, some of these themes will allow you to customize them in different directions. And so like one thing that I think is kind of nice is like you can, if you want Google Analytics, you can click on Google Analytics to find ones that are tagged to know that these particular themes are pre-built to support Google Analytics. Then I'm going to go back to the main themes page here, and let's just look at a couple of these for fun, and just to see what some of them have. Where's some that I'm familiar with? Where did it go? I'm going to go to the documentation one, because I've been spending a lot of time in there. Where did documentation go? No, I want to define the documentation tag. There should be a tag here. Of course, that brought me way down to the bottom. And these are not alphabetized. It would be nice if they were. Documentation. There we go. And let's just look at a couple of these themes, starting with, let's just pick this one here, Sina. This one, let's just start with one that is has some cool complexity to it, just to get a glimpse into the Sina theme here. Now, all the themes, for the most part, are very well documented. There's a couple themes that I've seen that the documentation is kind of in a state of transition, but in general, nearly everything is very, very well documented. And so that's one of the first things you're going to want to check as you go through the themes, is make sure you check the documentation. And some of them, the documentation might be slightly more advanced than others. In general, they're all pretty entry level. And when I say entry level, the one thing that I think is good to have a little familiarity with is being able to do, the basic Git cloning, editing things on your local system, get pushed back up. You don't have to be an expert in that, because the documentation for all this stuff tell you exactly what to do. But it's definitely going to be very helpful to have some of those Git basics down. And another thing you're going to want to have is you're going to want to have a some type of local editor. You'll probably end up doing some work in Markdown. I like Visual Studio Code. It's what I like to use, but at the same time, once you build one of these sites out, most of the work that you will be doing to maintain and update it is in Markdown. And so one of the things I like about Visual Studio Code personally is I work in a lot of different stuff, not only Markdown, and I like that code has a lot of support for lots of different things beyond just Markdown, and it has good Markdown support and rendering and so on, and is widely used. But if you're working primarily on the Markdown side of it, there's definitely some probably more elegant, several different Markdown specific editors that are really more optimized for that editing experience out of the box. And so you may, and there's even like some good web services like, I'll just show one. This is an example, HackMD. So hackmd.io is pretty cool because it's browser based and it's collaborative. And they've got a pretty good free account. And so kind of brings some of that modern collaborative editing capabilities that we have in the Google Docs type of world into the world of Markdown, where we're usually downloading from GitHub, and it's not GitHub's collaborative, right? Because as soon as you push it, it's there, but you're not going to get the same thing like you get in Google Docs, where you have multiple people editing maybe the same document at the same time, and being able to see that without having to go through pushing it and pulling it back up and down to the Git repo. So I'll give HackMD a little special call out there as well. Now where was I? I was on one of these tabs, one of my many tabs. I was on Assign a Theme. So another cool thing about every single theme I've seen for Hugo is they all have live demos. I have not seen one that does not have a live demo. And so you can come in and you can see here, and usually one of the first things you see, or on almost all of these, if it's not the first thing you see on the example, it's one of the first things you'll be able to find the features that it comes with. And so one of the cool things about themes is at the surface they seem like, oh, a theme that seems like it would be about CSS and about colors. I'm gonna get some type of. It is nothing like that. And so to give you I think Sign is a great example of that, because it has reusable snippets. They call them fragments. Some other, you may be more familiar with the term widgets. But there's a lot of different full page types that exist in here for tons of different types of pages. And if you want to customize a page with several different sections that do different things, they have them broken down into fragments. And so this is an example that this is on Hugo and shares a lot of commonalities with Hugo. But in terms of like this ease of use layer that they've built on top of it is some of it is unique to Sina. And so with any theme that you look at, it's good to start looking at the features first. And you may not even, like for me, a lot of times I wasn't even thinking about a lot of these features until I started looking at different themes. And then I started looking at the different features that different themes had, and I started thinking, wow, that would be useful, right? Just having a page that's built for contact form. And if you go further into that, how do you actually handle receiving forms, right? Something like this, some of these have like built-in, already pre-built-in MailChimp support, if you like MailChimp. And there may be a different template that has some other SaaS service that's built in. And that's really goes to one of those advantages that's really nice about sticking within one framework, is even though they've added some on top of Hugo, it's still Hugo. And so if you find like, oh, this one has MailChimp integration, another one has, I don't know, Office 365 integration or something, right? If you start to learn a little bit about Hugo, you can actually take the work that they've done here and repurpose it to a different theme, or vice versa, without. It's not the world's, it's not the super easy button, but if you spend a little bit of time in Hugo, being able to understand how the different components work starts to become. So this one, like you see here, like a JSON schema compatible editor using React. A lot of these have Mermaid.js or Chart.js integration capabilities. You can see here they have e-commerce integration in this one, which is really nice. You don't see e-commerce integration as a super common theme in a super common element in a lot of the themes. So this one I really like. I don't use it a lot, but it's just super powerful. And if you start looking at how they allow you to customize it with the pre-built fragments, you use Markdown, you're using very simple ways without having to get in and write a lot of code yourself, but really easy ways to make use of the code that they've already put in here. And so that's an example of a little bit more complicated one, if you will, more feature rich. Let's go back to the main themes page. Where's clarity? Let's just do a little Control F for it here. Oh, right at the top. So one we'll be looking at a little bit more, and this one's kind of, I think, endemic of a lot of the blog ones. The most common themes you'll see on here are definitely blog-oriented themes, and so clarity is a blog-oriented theme, and so when you look at this, right, you're going to see you're not going to find a portfolio and that shows, if I have want to make my own photography site or something, and I want something that shows a bunch of pages that display maybe scrolling panels of images or things like that. Right? This is a blog site, and that kind of highlights what you can get with different themes. On some themes, you'll definitely find things that have scrolling panels of images and stuff like that. On a blog theme, the structure of the page is already set up for you, and so you can go through different blog themes and think, hey, do I like the way that this one here looks? It's got my featured posts on the side, so I can tell there that it's going to have a method for me to identify which posts that I consider to be featured posts. It's going to automatically, most likely, I have to look at the documentation to know for sure, but it says recent posts here, so I can assume reasonably that this is going to automatically include my recent posts here. And I have the ability to use things like categories and tags, so that way it's for help people navigate through if I want to use this as my blog site. And it doesn't necessarily just have to be blogs. If you have anything that kind of fits that similar idea, I have several things that are pages of text, and I'd like them to be navigable in this way. They don't necessarily need to be blogs, but this will be a good format for that. And you can scroll down a little bit and see, oh, we've got a light theme and a dark theme. That's kind of nice. It's very simple. And you can start to look at some of the features right here without even leaving Hugo website. So blog tagging, deep links, lazy image loading, lots of some things you may care about, some things you may not care about. This does have, one of the interesting things is it doesn't say Google Analytics up here, but if usually most of these I think are, a lot of these templates come from companies that make templates, and so they care a lot about promoting their themes, even though they're free. And I think this is more of a work of passion here for Chip, who built this clarity theme, and so that may be why the feature like Google Analytics is not at the forefront. But you can also go through. Scan through the documentation, which may reveal a little bit more about how to work with it to see if it's if you kind of like it, if it makes sense, if the documentation seems easy for you. And before I get into that, there's a couple others I wanted to show. Let's just say, this one is really nice here. It is super easy to get going, and you can make reveal presentations on a Hugo website that you could host on Github Io or on S3 bucket or wherever you'd like to host the files that'll produce for you. Now, some of the larger templates have reveal support natively built into them, right? But with that, I think it's definitely an advantage to use a larger template if you want to build a site that has several things on it. You want to have, an about me page, and I want to have some blogs, and I want to have some presentations. I want to have those all on a common page. You'll definitely want to look for a theme that has reveal integrated into it. But if you just want to have the simplest way to get your reveal site up and going on GitHub Io, I think using using something like Reveal Hugo is super easy because there's nothing else to it. You can just create a repository specific to this and publish it on GitHub Io, and it's kind of, you know, boom, there you go, right? And maybe we'll build one of those because it's nice and easy. Last one I'm going to call out before we start getting into more coding is one that I've been using a lot lately that I really like. It's one of the most popular is this academic theme, and academic theme is actually a collection of themes from one company called Wowchemy. And so if we click on that, it's going to take me to wowchemy.com. And I'm hesitant to use anything from any company in general. Yeah, I say that as the company employee. I say that because I build a lot of experiments that I don't want to fund until I know that I'd like it. And once I like it, then maybe I'll fund it, right? But I like to have that. And the other thing is like a lot of times when you see ones, you know, that have paid plans, you know, they may be good if you're an individual, but if you try to build something where you might have a lot of crowdsourcing, there's limitations there. But I really like, you know, Wowchemy's model. They're very, very open sourcey, and like if you look at their plans, they're, you know, for the free you get everything, you know, and you start to look at what you get out of the paid plans. Like their most expensive one is $10 a month, and that's from the perspective of I can create something that I can have unlimited users for. I don't get charged, even if I want to have additional administrators for a site I create or things like that. You know, this is not charging a per user charge. So it's really pretty cool company. And what I really like with Wowchemy is they're another one that like Sina. They're not necessarily better than Sina. I could have just as easily probably chosen to use Sina for some of the projects I'm working on. I haven't. I'm probably just a little more familiar with Wowchemy here, but they have. Let's see, where's their docs? Or let's just go to their templates. So within the Wowchemy, so everything that happens in Wowchemy, it's with Hugo, but it's basically they've created these 5 different Hugo themes. And you use them just like any other Hugo theme, but behind the scenes they have had, you know, they use a common set of enhancements, and so that are really built for being able to customize your sites or your pages, and it's a really wide array of ways, lots and lots and lots of different possibilities. And so you may want to start off with a blog site. You start off with their blog site. It'll have the ability to support all of their widgets and shortcut codes and all of those things. And so maybe you start off with a very basic blog site with them, but maybe you want to customize some elements on your page that are a little cool. Like maybe you want a basic blog site that has a banner bar that navigates through images or something like that. You may not find that on most basic blog sites. You may not even see that in their basic template, but if you go to their documentation, it's really simple. Once you build it out, it's really simple to actually just turn on the feature by putting in a little shortcut code, and being able to access this really kind of broad array of features that they have to be able to customize your site in a lot of ways. And I think if you're looking at the idea of personal sites, there's always the personal sites, but you know, one of the things that if you're thinking, oh, I was just thinking about a personal site, and maybe it's just a blog site. Well, you may want to have it somewhere in between a blog site and a resume site, right? To be able to have posts types, and maybe you want a section for projects. And you can see when I go to the projects, I've got a couple of nice features here. There's only a couple of samples in this, but you can see it's got a little nav bar here to where I can click on some navigation for the different type of projects I have. And if I want to click on this demo, that one actually goes to an external link. So this can be going, so that's external project, that's what it says, right? And there's also this internal project, which is a basic page type. But as you can see, while it's basic at the top, it does have some nice little enhancements you might want to see at the bottom of your blog site. And if we go back to the posts, you can go through and see you've got options to put a big image at the top if you like that. Just as kind of a standard thing, and you can customize it more than that. But this is pretty out of the box functionality for this template, and you the different. So everything is going to have all of these will have nice ways to put headers, and they'll use the same Markdown syntax, if you will, to say what level of header it is. They will have different out of the box typography. They all have code highlighting, syntax, and so on. But then you see some other more unique things like Plotly chart format. And I've seen others that have chart.js, having LaTeX support. LaTeX support's actually pretty common in a lot of templates, but it's how LaTeX renders. You can see how LaTeX renders here. When you can put in your math block in that type of format, and you can see how it renders. Not everything will have the build process pre-created for you, so that when you do your Hugo building, that it will render these. Another one I really like, I'm a big fan of Mermaid JS diagrams. It's a way of creating diagrams in a pretty simple text format. Text/code, whatever you call it, markup, what have you. But this is an example of Mermaid code block, and you can see how it renders. This is also an example of a Mermaid code block, and this is also an example of a Mermaid, and another example of a Mermaid. So Mermaid's pretty simple and super flexible, and it creates really great charts, and so I think it's pretty cool. There's actually you don't see it on a huge amount of themes, but there's a number of themes that have built-in ability that when you just go and you do your Hugo server command to show it, or you build it, the template already has the logic into it to where if you have Mermaid in there and you follow their syntax, then it will render your Mermaid code for you on the resultant web pages. And so, so that's an example of just kind of looking through what's out there and trying to find. I think from trying to find one that's as close to what you want, and or looking one like this where you can start pretty simply. If you think you want to expand to something bigger, you can start with their blog starter, but then know that within that framework you have the ability to do all of this stuff that you see here without needing to get in and write a bunch of code to do it. It's pretty simple to include some of their stuff. So from there, let's go ahead and let's start playing with stuff. So let me go back to close out of that and go in here, and let's go back to where were we? Let's go to our Hugo Themes complete list. So let's build a couple themes for fun. So I just was thinking maybe we start with this Clarity blog theme. So when you get into some of the themes, you'll be able to tell pretty quickly how advanced they are, and how much customization they've had. If you go with a more extensively, customized theme, some of the divergence in the how you do them, it gets a little bit bigger. In general, for the more basic themes, the instructions are almost identical, regardless of which theme you go to. But I'll just give you one more example of a theme that's pretty cool and complex, and maybe very interesting for if you're a front-end designer. But let's just look up the Victor Hugo theme. So here's a free Hugo theme from Netlify, and let's see, where is? So I should pull up the actual page. You can read more about. No, where's the home page for this? So here it is. But you can see this has post CSS and Babel for CSS and JavaScript compiling and transcribing or transplanting, right? And it uses the Webpack framework. And so you can see, so those are some, pretty cool frameworks for front end. Some of these will use Bootstrap, right, as well to load in additional components or other kind of sub frameworks that to load in components to help with the JavaScript or CSS customization beyond. They work within the Hugo framework still, because Hugo, is a pretty general scaffolding system for Golang web capabilities. But you start to get into, you see things like that. Well, then you know that it's going to have, when this thing compiles, it's going to have compilation steps that know how to take advantage of these things. And it may be different than a more basic website that doesn't have some of those capabilities. So Hugo's a nice basic one. So let's just start and look at the instructions here. So let's go ahead and let's just do a little code as we go here. I'll open up my Visual Studio Code. And I actually put those both on the same side, didn't I? Let me switch sides that those are on. And we'll do, okay. I've got all these other files here that are not relevant for today. Let's go ahead and close those. Save it, yeah, why not? All these bash scripts that I'm writing here. Okay, so let's just go ahead and let's just go. Let's make a new directory for today. Let's go make there for, we'll just call it Tanzu T, because I don't want to type out Tuesday. And we'll put this stuff all in a new directory. So, and actually, let's just real quick, installing Hugo is pretty easy. One thing you'll see a lot is a lot of these will say, make sure you install the Hugo extended version. And you may see some old stuff still that'll be like, go to npm or yarn, install the Hugo extended version. Don't do that. That's kind of, some of those are remnants, because the newest Hugo versions, at least I don't, the funny thing is, I mean, I actually, believe it or not, I'm on a Windows machine right now, but I use my Windows machine to open up Linux, and it works well for me, because then I can have all the corporate VPN on the Windows box running underneath the surface, so I don't have to worry about polluting my Ubuntu with that stuff. But I actually don't have most of this stuff installed on Windows. But when you go to Hugo, where's the installation? Where's the docs? Let me just expand this window a little bit more. Let's go quick start. So we go to install. And the easiest way, if you're on Linux or Mac, use brew. And you'll see if you use brew install Hugo on Mac or Linux, that is the extended version, right? It's kind of interesting, because if you look down at like Windows, you have this option on Windows to actually specify the extended version. So I don't know exactly why that is. It's just one of those things to know. You will see a lot of templates that say use extended, and if you're on Linux or Mac and you use brew, then that is that supposedly installs the extended version. I haven't had any problems with it, and I've seen several different documents that say that is how you install the extended version on Linux or Mac. I've been able to use a lot of templates that say they require extended, that I haven't needed to do any npm or yarn installations with, and so I trust that works well. So easy to install Hugo. You need to install Go, and then you can install, and I think Brew will even install it for you with Hugo automatically. So now where was I on my, is it here? Okay, so we are here, yep, on our Hugo Clarity theme. And so first let's go Hugo New Site, and we'll look at some of the cool features of Hugo while we do this. And I'm going to give it a name. We'll just call this, I already have some scaffolds. Well, one thing built for this, which I'll show you, which isn't really built, but a very basic scaffolding on my GitHub for this. So we'll just call this Hugo Clarity example. And we'll go ahead and say ls. And we're going to cd to our Hugo Clarity example site. And let's see what this created. Right? And this gives us some very standard, this is the standard world of, maybe I can bring this up a little higher into the middle of the screen here more. I should probably minimize my Slack. Who knows what I have in there? And let's bring this up a little bit higher. And okay, so we can see here that this is the basics. If you just create a basic website with Hugo, you can see archetypes and content, data, layout, static, themes. That's pretty consistent, regardless of which theme you use. Sometimes there's some very minor modification to this structure, but this is pretty much what you see very closely in all themes. Now, once you generate your HTML code, then Hugo will create another folder called public, and that's where it'll put your HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. This is new. We haven't generated anything with it yet. We don't see the public folder yet, and we can. Let me go ahead and just maximize this for a minute. I'll go ahead and look at what a basic config toml looks like with nothing in it. Now, if you're like me, you may not be especially familiar with toml before you came in here, and there may be complex toml that exists somewhere in the world, but I have not found it playing with the various different themes that I've seen it. It's super basic, right? It is exactly your key in equal sign and your value in quotations usually, depending on the type of value it is, right? And so you could go and read a document about toml if you want, but I don't think that there's really any reason to. If you're trying to build one of these projects, if you go to whatever instructions for whatever template you want to build, if it needs you to change something in the toml, which there are a few things we'll change as we go here, it'll tell you exactly what to add to this. And so, but this config toml is kind of the root configuration for your Hugo site. And and so some themes will have GitHub repos that you can clone that will already include your base directory for a Hugo site. More will expect that and it will tell you, right, in the documentation, say create a Hugo site and then put the theme into the themes directory here. And so as we'll see, that's what we're going to need to do here. So now we created our site, our Hugo Clarity example here, and we're going to go ahead and do a get init on it to put in our basic Git scaffolding.
Hey, so the way that we currently have the stream set up, it cuts off the very bottom of the screen. So could you move?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Let me go back to that. See if I can. Let me just get that figured out. I'll go back to here and try to get it not quite to the bottom. How's that?
Yeah, that's good. It can still go down. It's laggier in Twitch, so that's why I'm trying to. Yeah, it can go down a tiny bit.
Cool. And I'm going to be typing there, so I don't want it to be I don't have to be staring at the very bottom of their screens. I think that'll be enough for us to be able to see here. Okay, so yeah, and so if you're not familiar with it, there's this cool thing called Git submodule add, which is it's just a nice way to add a repo inside of a repo, which is pretty cool because one of the things we'll see that's really cool about Hugo, and maybe I should explain this before we get into it, and then we'll look at it in action, is so in Hugo, your content is primarily going to be in the content directory. Layouts, they'll have templates for things, static will be static pages, themes will be themes, and data, you'll have assets and so on, right? But the main pages that you serve will be in the content directory. But Hugo has this really awesome feature called fall through, which is really nice because you can put something inside of a theme and it'll look in your content directory. And if nothing's there, right, then it'll go and look into your themes directory and do cool things like that, which is pretty nice. And you can also copy things from your themes into the content And so the idea is like, you can put your theme in here. You can have the theme in there. Your personality of your website will become that theme, but you can come into these other directories and make local customizations to overwrite things in that theme. You may want to customize something about that theme. Well, you don't have to fork it. You don't have to fork it and make changes and then worry, oh, what if they update the theme later? And then I want to take an update to the theme, but I've already forked it and I've customized it. And now when I try to update, take advantage of the newest updates from whoever was making, the next version of this theme. Now it's really difficult for me. Well, Hugo has a really, really brilliant way to full through of is that most of anything you're going to customize, you can customize in all these directories other than themes, and it will just absorb the stuff from the themes directory that you haven't overwritten in your local files. And so that way you can keep your theme very clean, very easy to update without needing to fork and do those sorts of things. And that's one of the reasons where this submodule command really comes in handy. Is it's just a standard Git feature. You don't always see it used everywhere because I think there's not a lot of frameworks that you may be working in may not have this kind of fall through capability. So you may be just used to, oh, well, I've got to go fork it, right? But especially when you have the nice fall through capability of Hugo, the submodule thing becomes pretty cool. And so you can start with adding the submodule, and that allows you to have a kind of this directory and directory, and you can update your submodules recursively with single line commands if you like, or you can even just navigate into the submodule directory directly too. But Git is smart enough to know when you have a submodule, when you're trying to add things and update the things that aren't your submodule, it can help keep that nice and clean. Where it gets more messy when you try to clone a Git repo into a Git repo. And so let's just go ahead and we'll go ahead and just paste that command right in there. Very simple. And so we've got the git submodule add, and then it's going to say the source. And I don't have to fork it because I'm again that whole fall through thing. And then this next section here, right? It's going to tell me where it wants me to clone it into, right? In the name. So I'll go ahead and hit enter. And now if I go ls themes here, I can see I've got my Hugo Clarity theme and themes. And let's just follow the direction and see what it wants me to do next here. So now it's saying if we do option 1, we're going to copy the stuff from Clarity, the example site, into our local content folders. And so that works because if you look at example site, let's go ahead and look at it. So ls themes, so Hugo Clarity, example site, you see that this directory here, what does it have? Architects, config, and content, and data, and layouts, really mostly the same stuff that I have here. And so I can copy that stuff down and kind of use it as to kind of bootstrap and get me started if that's what I want to do. And so sometimes that's a really good idea. I think for basic blog sites that works really well because you can then just go in and start overwriting some of the pre-built content that you don't want. But for the most part, for a blog site like Clarity, you're probably not going to want to change much other than the content pages. And so that works. But before we do that, you may want to preview what the example site looks like to see if you want to copy everything. Maybe you just want to copy some things. And you generally don't have to copy everything, because if all you do is create your own custom pages in your content directory, all the rest of it will automatically fall through from your theme. So you don't generally always need to copy everything down because it'll fall through. But let's go ahead and look at this other nice thing that it says here in option 2. Great for tips. This you can use on I think most every theme that exists in Hugo. This method here and this specific command. So you navigate into the example site. Every theme I've looked at has something like, and they pretty much always use this example site directory. So it's a pretty, it's a not a forced syntax requirement to use this this type of syntax here, but it's pretty widely adhered to way of doing things. And so if let's just do that, we'll go to CD themes, example site. No, Hugo Clarity, example site. And once you're in the example site, again, you have all the stuff. You have a local config.toml even, which is what you need really to get, the Hugo is going to look to see that config.toml file. Let's see, do I have the information I need to start here? And it does. And so we can say Hugo server from here, but Hugo server wants to know where the themes directory is. And since we're already navigated up well inside of the themes directory, I'm going to give it this flag that says Themester. Now the Hugo server command, Hugo CLI has a lot of different options. The server command starts the server and starts serving the content locally without actually doing a full build. So it's really nice if you go in and you start modifying some things, you want to see, you know, what those modifications look like before you actually build the output and push it back up to GitHub, right? So, and this is a great way. You've pulled down this theme, but I haven't invested in this theme yet. I've pulled it down. Maybe I just want to make sure it renders well. Maybe make sure there's no bugs in it. I haven't run into a lot of buggy themes, but it's always good to double check because anything, I'm sure there's always stuff that is buggy or not working well somewhere. And so maybe good to double check and see, make sure you like how it runs locally. So before you do anything further, you can just paste that Hugo server themester and enter, right? And it's built it. Now it's built, and I can go over to my local host on standard port. It's 1313, and voila, we have our own little server going here, right? And we can see Jane Doe, and that all this stuff was pretty cool. And so now, if I wanted to use this, I mean, I want to make sure I customize my name and my little bio here. Of course, I'm going to probably want to put my own content pages here, or my blog pages, instead of the ones that are default. But I can still click in and see this Markdown Syntax guide is nice. I like to mention this real quick. If you're not familiar with Markdown, it's really something that you can learn by just looking at it and seeing, and then having maybe a quick reference. If you want to do really fancy things, or if it makes you feel comfortable, you can go read a book about Markdown if you want to, but you absolutely don't have to do any of that. You can see here's a blog page. It's not unlike it has, if I write a blog on here, then what I want to do is some subset of the things that exist in here. So I could even like go into this page if I want to, change the title, maybe push this content down towards the bottom. And as I write what I want, it's like, oh, I want to put a block quote. Oh, okay, I can see how to do that. But right now we're looking at the HTML version of it. So let's go ahead and drill into the Markdown, native Markdown, because this is what Markdown looks like after it renders into HTML, right? And we want to look at it in its more raw state so we can see what it looks like when we edit it. So we're running our site here. So I'll go ahead and I'll stop running that site. And let's just take a look at, so we should see a content directory in here. So if I say ls content, we can see here about, and there's some mistakes here. This about PTMB is actually something for multi-language support, so you don't have to worry about that unless you want to get into multi-language support. We've got something called archives. We see we've got a home page, and we've got something called post. And so if we go back, actually, I think that's probably still open, isn't it? In Firefox, I closed it, didn't I? Let's just start that again so we can just see how we can map kind of how this works out, right? So if I go back into my local host, we can see we've got home, and this is our home page, so that makes sense. We have something called archives, and we have something called about. And then we have all these pages here. And so let's navigate into that a little bit further in what it looks like underneath the covers. And where was I? So we said ls content. And so we know how to find the about page, and we know how to find the archives page because those match very nicely here. Homepage, well, that's got to be in there. And then we can see we've got an index file and posts. So let's just ls what's in the posts, because that is going to be our posts. Ls content post. And we can see here emoji support, Markdown syntax. Again, these things are the PTs or multi-language support. So if you're not concerned with that, we're not going to get into that today. So ignore the ones of the PT, but we can see here that, okay, math typesetting, placeholder, rich content. Well, so happens if we go back in here, Markdown syntax guide, rich content, placeholder text, math typesetting. So you can tell that that in this post directory, we've got these files that happen to have the same name as the posts. So let's go ahead and let's look at that one we were just looking at, Markdown syntax. And so in VS Code here, oh, and I am on the bottom of my page again. I'm sorry, I maximized that without thinking of it. So hopefully I didn't lose anybody there, but yeah, you can see, hopefully if you didn't, I don't know if you could see those before with the bottom of the page thing, but if you can't now, you can see, again, these names just match the names of the posts. And so that kind of tells me right after that, without even reading the documentation, okay, I can see here that if I want to edit the Markdown syntax blog, I probably edit this file. So let's go ahead and we'll code that. Oh, I'm just going to change into that directory. And we'll code our Markdown syntax D file. And we'll go ahead and expand up here. And so the first thing to look at is what we call the front matter. And so the front matter, so we have to have some ways of telling the system the metadata about the page. Maybe we want to include tags, right? When people go read your blog, you don't necessarily want them to, you may want to be visible somewhere where what tags it aligns with. You definitely want it to render to that tag navigation system on the side, right? But you want to have some metadata, and so you have these options to put metadata. So the very top part of this file we have here, and this is Tamil, right? And we can see it's Tamil. Now these can be Tamil. Sorry, I hope my dogs aren't making too much noise in the background there.
No, we can barely hear them. That'd be good.
Cool.
Yeah. But actually, since I turned my voice on, we've probably got about 15 or 20 minutes left, just as a general.
No, that's good. Good to keep this from going too deep, because I'm going to make sure I don't exhaust my own knowledge here. Yeah, so the interesting thing about Hugo pages is it doesn't care whether it's Tamil or YAML. And the one little thing you learn about Tamil, you don't have to know much, because you can see pretty simple syntax, and if you're using it to accomplish some goal that's documented, they'll tell you exactly what to do, right? And so you can see that, this is one of the things that tells you right away this is Tamil are the three little plus signs, right? And this is YAML, you'd see three little dashes. And so if I want to, I could do something like that, and I could go in and I could say author, and I could turn this into YAML, and it would work just fine. Right now, I'm going to leave it as Tamil, because you don't want to sit here and watch me manually reformat that to between YAML and Tamil. That's kind of boring, right? But it doesn't matter either way. There are some themes that that advise to use YAML in the front matter, and Tamil for the configuration files, because I've read that there are some extensions that you may or may not want to add in the future that that prefer having YAML in the front matter of the actual content pages themselves. In this case, we're building out this Clarity blog, right? And that's what we want to build. And so there's no reason not to just accept how it has the standard setup here. So we'll stick with the standard setup, and we can see we can put some how we add our tags, how we add our categories, and we can just work off of what's already here. And it's pretty simple to figure out, what these are. And of course, there's this is a well-documented template. So if you look at any of these, series, aliases, what does that mean? That's in the docs, right? And it's because it's a really simple theme, the docs are not very long, not hard to get through, and cover everything very well. And so now once we get past that bottom set, so you'll either see, in all these Hugo pages, you'll either see a starting 3+ and then a closing 3+, and that is the beginning and the end of your front matter. Or if your front matter is defined in YAML, then you'll see 3 dashes and another 3 dashes down at the bottom, and that will indicate that's all metadata, and where your real meat of your article starts is after that, after those front matter section ends. And you can now if you open a Markdown editor, one of the kind of cool things that Markdown editors have is they have a preview. Now, it's important to remember with Hugo, you're using Markdown to generate HTML. And so it is not going to give you what it ultimately looks like exactly in HTML, but it actually can give you a very good idea of what a lot of the more basic elements are going to render as approximately, to give you some idea. And so, and for Markdown syntax, it's really nice. And so you can see, hey, this looks just like that page we were looking before. And you can see my H1. Oh, it even gives me a nice little underline if you want to have that underline, and so on. And you can see on the left exactly how those correlate. H1 is £1, and that's a heading level 1, a heading level 2. And, so you may see here paragraph. Does that mean anything? Well, what's a paragraph got here? It's got 2 hashtags in front of it. And we see 2 hashtags as a heading level 2. So there's nothing that says that a paragraph has to be level 2, right? This is just defining that this is a header. And an example, when I actually want to write my paragraph text, I don't need to put anything there, just text. Right? If I want block quotes, I can see here that so it gives me a little explanation, and we can see our block quote without attribution and our block quote with attribution, and there's just an example. So if you want to include a block quote, what do I see here? Well, block quote without attribution, I just got to put one of these, I don't even know what you call these characters, these little over arrow things. I use them all the time, but it just reminds me, I don't even know what they're called. And so, yeah, so I guess, the cool thing is you can see here, what do I want? I just want a heading and text. Do I want a block quote? Do I possibly want a table? Do I want a code block? Right, so code block's real simple, right? So you just do 3 backticks, and you don't have to, but in this case, we're writing HTML, and one of the cool things is if you tell it what you're writing, I can write bash there. If I'm writing bash, I can, there's a ton of different languages that will, it supports syntax highlighting for. And so if you want syntax highlighting like this to look really nice, when you define your code block, you put the name of the language right next to your syntax. And so I'm not trying to say this is the world's easiest thing if you're looking at it and it seems, if you haven't used it before and it looks a little bit confusing for you at first, you'll get, it's just, but it is something you'll get familiar with really fast. And if you start with a good example of a blog and this isn't the best maybe example of a blog because this is showing all the different things you could possibly do. But if we start with a more vanilla blog, like what other blogs do we have here? Then you can then you say, oh, what I want to do is very, very similar to that. That blog will have just the Markdown on it. That is basically the Markdown you want to include, and you can see everything you want right there and kind of just look at it and follow along, and you can have something like a previewer here to make sure that it looks similar. Now, that being said, especially if you get into like right here, it says code block with Hugo's internal highlight shortcut. And so if what happens, if we want to see what that it looks like, then we're going to have to actually render it in Hugo to HTML. As you can see here, it's not giving us a very nice representation of it in this Markdown reader. But that's one of the nice things here is, we want to see what that looks like. All I need to do again is that go back to our example site directory. And again, I could do that Hugo server and pop it up. If I want to make changes, I can just hit the, stop it and restart the Hugo server, and I can pop into my local web browser. Or you could use something like Scaffold, another of these pipelining tools, to be able to just have it automatically pop up the page with the change after you make the changes, I think something like that, right? To be able to see in real time, I made a change. I want to know what it looks like. I can see. Okay, so I know we are starting to get lower on time. So let's get to some of the point here. So let's go ahead and, in this case, let's just follow that documentation the rest of the way. Let me go ahead and pull this back to the side. Now we've gone through and we did all that without actually making any changes at all, other than putting this theme in the themes directory. And one of the cool things about that front matter is, again, some themes might have complex dependencies, but a lot of themes don't. And so one of the cool things you can do is you can download, just like we did before with that git submodule command, you can pull several different themes into your common website. And on the front matter of the pages that you can create, in general, you'll set one default theme for your site. That'll be the default. But on any page in that front matter, you can go ahead and tell it, I don't want that theme. I want the different theme on this particular page. And then when you navigate to that page will use a different theme for that particular page. So that's kind of a cool thing. Now, where were we in our documentation here? Let's go back to, okay. Go ahead and close that window. Those are from my local server. Close tabs and let's go ahead and we'll do this copy, just following the documentation. And that's going to pull out stuff done from themes and really make that theme integrate, fully take over our local site rather than using the fall through. So I need to go actually, I'm right here. I want to get out of the themes, because if you look here, the directory we should be in at this point, if we're following the instructions, is the root of our website. And so we'll go ahead and go back to the root of our new site that we created, our Hugo Clarity example, and I'm going to go ahead and paste that in. And now if we ls, right, we could tell we did something because we've got this config taxonomy file. But now if we look in our local contents directory, rather than going into that example site, we should see some stuff in there now. Yep, and now we can see we've got all that stuff that is also still, because we just copied it, still in our example site, but we've copied it into our primary content folder to make sure that it's always going to serve that content when we do it. And then so that's that gets us that initial setup, right? And then so you can run, now I can run Hugo server just from here without needing to go back and tell it where the themes directory is, because when you're running it from the root of your site, it knows the themes, it'll find the themes directory automatically because it's seeing it in the, now that's just going to show us the same exact thing we already saw. But just to make sure I'm honest here, right, we've got that. And now we get into configuration. And so config.toml will start configuring your site. And this gives you an example of what parameters that you can put in there. And in general, you may not want to change anything at all, right? And so you could go in and put these values in your config.toml, or so you can see here your global parameters. These will need to go in your global config.toml. And you see a very similar setup of parameters, but a subset that you can put in a page. And so you may set some of these globally if you want to make some customizations, like what do we say, date format, enable math notation. I want to use custom fonts, etc. Right? These are the type of things you may want to define. Then we saw earlier there's that section that said featured. And so here we can see that there's a Boolean value called featured. So let's just look at that little example in action. Oops, I don't want to block off the bottom of the page. But let's just see if I've got my Hugo site running now. Oh, I closed the window, but let's just see what is in the featured now and see if we can change that. So now we see our featured post as Markdown Syntax guide. So let's change that. So let's stop this. And now I want to go, we want to close this because this is still the file that's opened from our example site. Now we want to make sure we edit the local one. So let's don't save the changes we made there. And we're going to say code, content, posts, and markdown syntax.md. And what did I do? Oh, didn't spell code correctly. That'll explain it. And now we should see in here featured true. So let's go ahead and change featured to false there. And then we'll go ahead and save that. And let's make something else featured. What else is in this directory? ls content post. And let's go ahead and let's make this one here called emoji support. I don't know what that is. Let's pick that out and we'll make that the featured and see if that works for us. Code, content, post, emoji support. And then we go here and we can see where did our front matter end. So our front matter enter, it doesn't have a spot for featured, right? So I can just create a new line there and type in featured. It's a Boolean value, so I don't need to quote it, and we'll say true. And we'll go ahead and save it, and then we'll go ahead and say Hugo server. And now let's go ahead and open that back up. And now our featured post is emoji support. Okay, and so
about 5 minutes, Art.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much. Oh, and I didn't get into the. Let me just real quickly cover the GitHub Io side, and this is also covered in documentation. If there's anything I rush through a little bit here, but it's pretty straightforward. So let's go ahead and have some tools. See, so if now I have my site how I wanted, I used my local Hugo server to test to make sure before I built it. Now I want to build it, right? Now if I do ls, there is no folder called public. I'm going to type in just Hugo by itself, right? It built it. Now I have ls and I have a public folder. Now there's a few different ways to get your public folder into your particular GitHub example. It's generally most commonly recommended that we use some process, and there's a few different ways that different themes will recommend that you do it to get these files from your public folder. Usually you put them in a different repository. You don't have to, but that's a common thing because essentially everything else other than your public folder is your source code. And if you want everybody, if you're not, if this is a blog site, you probably don't care if people can see all the source. You may want, in my case, like I want people to see the source so they can see how it's done. But in some cases, you may not want to. So you could copy and paste this public folder, the contents of this public folder into another repo that you created. GitHub doesn't have the ability to, if I just push all this up to GitHub, it doesn't have the ability to say, I just want to show the contents of my public folder. But I could create a folder here called docs, because one of the standard folders that GitHub Io can serve from, it will serve either from everything or it can serve from a folder called docs. So I could take this public and put it in docs in a folder called docs and then push it to my GitHub Io. And then once I go to GitHub Io, we'll go, let's see, I've got one of these already built somewhere. So let's just go to my GitHub page and let's just go to my one here and let's go this one I have running, test Hugo learn. This is another cool Hugo template that I really like and I already actually have running here. And we can see here that if you follow the instructions for this Hugo learn theme, it will walk you straight into how to do this exactly. But you come to your settings on your GitHub repository once you have that Hugo build done. And then you can say, in this case, I've got my build actually put in the docs directory. And once it's there, I can go to test Hugo learn. And it gives me this really nice e-learning format here that I have a little sample e-learning course on. And you can see it's got a nice little breadcrumb navigation. It tells me which pages I've been through. It has nice shortcodes to host YouTube videos very easily. It's got a nice breadcrumb at the top. It's got these really cool edit this page, so it'll bring you automatically into, I don't have that set up properly on that one yet. I forgot. I haven't configured that. But you just have a simple setting, and it'll automatically bring you directly to the right page to if you want to edit the back end. Once you make those edits on the back end, you go back in, type Hugo build, git push, and then it will push it back out to your Github Io site. And so I have I've exhausted my time. I hope that I didn't rush through. I know that last part there of getting on your Github Io was fairly quick, but again, these documents, walk through them pretty simply. You know, once you get your code built out the way you want, where was I? And I forgot what tab I'm on. But yeah, once you get your code built out the way that you want, you can just get that output of that public folder. You could even, just copy it over into another folder called docs, or you copy it in another repository and share the entire repository. You can do it on your username.github.io folder, or you could do it on any repository. You'll have those settings in there. If it's your repository, you can go again into those settings and just enable GitHub doc or enable GitHub pages, and then it will give you back a URL that you can go to see it. And then you can also even go into your DNS settings. If you have a Route 53 or something, you can say point myname.com, myurl.com to that URL that GitHub gave me, and then it'll pop up on your own GitHub URL. So I will stop there. As I told you, I will go longer than if you let me. So you let me, and I did.
Well done. Well done, sir.
Great job.
Yeah, hopefully that's helpful. I recommend just getting into the themes. There's so many cool themes out there. You spend a little time playing with them. Once you learn just a little of those basic things, from then on, it's just, if you know how to edit Markdown, or if you're learning how to edit Markdown, it's real simple. And once you get your page the way you like it, even if you put a little effort to get the page the way you like it, then from then on, it's just editing the Markdown. You've got your structure in place, and you want to do a post, I'll just write it in Markdown, and there you go. And there's rich text format to Markdown editors as well. So if you prefer to edit in like a rich text format type editor, and then copy. One little trick is you can do that in GitHub Issues, which is really nice because you can even paste images directly. I don't know why on the standard GitHub web browser editor they don't allow you to paste images, but if you actually want to take a cut and paste of an image, you can put it in any issue ticket. You didn't have to submit the issue ticket, and it'll automatically upload the image and submit the Markdown. Fully lets you paste images directly into issue tickets when you do that. So you can actually do a lot of really good editing right in your issue ticket. Copy the Markdown out of that, and then paste it into your file, and there you go.
Awesome. Thanks. This went in super depth with a lot of this stuff. So it's cool seeing a bunch of these different themes and how you could go into them and whatnot.
Do you want to
unshare your screen so we can see Bob in full 4K Dolby Vision?
Let's go screen share. Cool.
Oh, apparently the tire fire took a little off the top.
Yeah, the tire fire got away from me, but I think I got it sorted out.
Now you need to do a skeleton face palm now. Yeah. I guess you could be there. Maybe your fingers just burnt off in that picture or something.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't set it up as like a effect or macro so the mouth moves to match. But oh well.
I feel like you should have done something like this for Halloween.
Yeah. Come on, guy. Or Dia de las Muertes.
Wait, we don't dress up for Thanksgiving?
Oh, boy. Here we go.
I mean, you
Gobble,
look
gobble.
like you burned the turkey.
And the rest of the house down along with it. And the tires.
Well, yeah.
Well, thank you again, Art. This was great, and so much great information. I was going to say in-depth and great at the same time, and it came out great. In-depth and great information about this Hugo world that you're living in and sharing with us. We're all just living in it. Wait, I don't know. Anyway, but I want to say thank you to you, and then obviously to Tiffany and Paul. Reminder: we are not having a show next week. It's the week off for Thanksgiving. I am thankful for all of you, and thankful for Paul and Tiffany for this great co-hosting. And Art,
thank you.
I'm thankful for you.
I'm also thankful for me.
Aww.
Yes, good, perfect. And yeah, I think with that, tutalua.
Yeah, my
Oops, you're muted again.
show while I'm 29.
Hey, that's right. Happy birthday, Tiff.
Thanks.
Art, you're on mute. We can't hear you. You're saying a million things. There you go. There it is. Yep.
Is that better? Oh,
Hey.
I'm turning a number that I won't want to talk about.
You just muted yourself.
Oh, you muted again. Somehow your thing keeps muting. It's weird.
Okay.
How's that? Does he hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's this weird thing between my headset has a mute button. It apparently is out of sync. It's doing the exact opposite of muting my headset if I touch it and unmuting me, or vice versa.
Weird.
But yeah, I'm turning a birthday that I don't want to talk about in about 2 weeks. So
Yeah,
so have fun with your perpetual 29. 30, I guess I will be perpetually 39. Yeah, I'm 39 now, so that I won't be much longer.
Well, I think Bob's
Paul
the
and I
older
are mere
person
month,
here.
Yeah, I'm a month older than Paul, and so you can see how much better I look than he does, and it only goes downhill from here.
I'd guess 29 for all of you, really.
Well, thank you.
Although, Bob, I have kind of noticed, and I want you to tell me if this is right. Does my hair look less gray when it's longer like this?
It actually does. It does
Right?
look less gray, yeah, because you're able to like showcase more of your pepper with your salt. So, well, anyway, with that, TT Wolf FM, ta-ta for now, and enjoy your Thanksgiving, everyone.